Hello, bonnet heads. Welcome back. I am Pamela Bob, creator of Living on a Prairie, the award-winning series. If you haven't watched it, why not? Do it. Do yourself a favor. It's enjoyable. And I am here today with everyone's favorite prairie bitch, the only prairie bitch, Allison Arngrim. Hello, Allison Arngrim.
Am I children? What am I doing? I was like, I'm at an angle. I'm zooming. Hi.
You're home today. What's happening?
This is bonkers. This is so crazy. Yeah, I'm home because people are coming to supposedly fix things that they haven't fixed since February.
Got it.
What do you do? What do you do? Yeah.
You stay home because you can't miss them. Because if you miss them, then your home doesn't get fixed until 2025 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next February.
I know that you did the bus tour this weekend. Is that correct? Can you tell me about it? How was it? Dean did the bus tour.
Epic. He brave man did the first tour of the day. Better man than me. I did 2 tours back to back and kind of got car sick because I'd forgotten how bumpy the bus is that we used to take up those hills, and you go all the way up and all the way around, and then you turn around, and then of course you're standing around facing backwards talking to people and reading from cards or notebooks. So I was like, do you have a spray?
Oh no.
It was really fun though. I did not hurl. Somebody gave a lovely fan said, I have a diet Sprite in my purse I have not opened yet. And I was like, yes. And then of course it went everywhere because it'd been shaken up in the bus. It was hilarious. But yeah, and then I had a whole table set up with books and stuff. And I suspected people might want that. So I stayed. I wound up staying till the last bus because they had all gotten on saying, I'll get something when I get back because there's a line. And I thought they're going to get off the bus and I'm not going to be there.
Right, right.
So I stayed. And I sold all my books and all my bonnets and all my aprons. And I'd filled the car and it was like empty when it was craziness. It turned into a full scale event. Me and Dean were there and it turned into a full scale event. It was insane.
That's great. And they're going to still continue to do it. I mean, I know there are other dates, but do you think this is like
They're going to have to because they were all full. The buses were all full. And they were clamoring and talking about my bus and Dean's bus were sold out like immediately. But yeah, people wanted they would do this every day.
Yeah,
you could do this every day. They would go.
Did you ever think in a million years that this is what would be happening?
Never. That was one of the running themes. I said, we started the show, we didn't know you'd still be watching it, let alone care, because when we started the show there was no cable TV, let alone VHS or streaming or DVDs, so there was no concept. And I said that's why you get all those weird things like did Albert die or become a doctor, because the writers were like, what are they going to do, watch the episodes back to back and compare? That was years ago. Remember that? So I said we had no concept that the people are going to watch this many years later, and the idea that 50 years later, and I told them frankly when we moved to even Winoka, so we were on the Paramount lot, I was like, oh, good, I don't have to go to Simi Valley. And then we went back. And then when I left the show, I was like, well, at least I don't have to go to Simi Valley anymore. And if you had told me 50 years ago that I would voluntarily, not at gunpoint, go back to Simi Valley to ride around on a bus. No, not a thing. And we had rattlesnakes. We actually saw rattlesnakes this time because.
So it's not just folklore.
Yeah. Yes, we kept warning them about the snakes, and then a huge, enormous rattler crossed the road in front of the bus. Slowly, like I'm walking here, I'm slithering here. Get out of my way. Just went. And people freaked, and we're like, okay, if you thought we were making that up to ruin your fun, that is in fact the actual rattler that will kill you if you get off this bus when we tell you not to.
Louise. My God. All right. Well, okay. And also another fun thing that happened this week was that Dean was on, is it KL? What is it? What's
the Channel 5?
Yes, that's it. Sorry, I'm an East Coaster, so that's not my normal station. But yes, apparently it's a big deal because he texted me and said, "Oh my God, Dean's on this, and it's huge."
It is massively huge. The late fabulous Sam Rubin was the entertainment reporter there, who was now worldwide. I used to run into him all the time when he was taping shows for Australia. We used to, because he did that a lot. He was worldwide, and Sam Rubin just passed away suddenly, just like 2 weeks ago or something. So he would have been doing that interview probably. I mean, it's huge. And then we're all like waiting for Mark Kriske, the weatherman, to get better and come on. I mean, it's like KTLA 5, for those who don't know it, they literally had a channel in Vancouver BC, where everybody's filming all the time, that would run KTLA Channel 5 for all the industry people in Vancouver because they had to be able to get Channel 5. So it's that big. It's a huge, giant honking deal to talk about your book on KTLA.
And he was great. He was so good. Not that that's surprising at all, but when it's that good, it's something to celebrate. It's great. And he gave a great shout out to this show, which is awesome.
He mentioned the show.
And speaking of Dean Butler, he's mysteriously not here at the moment. But
where is he? We're talking about him. Why are we talking so long and there's no Dean? What is happening?
Perhaps he will be joining us soon from the studios of UBN Go in Burbank, California. Yeah, that's right. It's a special event podcast. And today's really special. This is the Little House 50th anniversary podcast. We are talking to our beloved Dean Butler. These next 2 episodes, he was the grown-ass adult man coming into little Melissa Gilbert's life and all of our hearts. And hey, it was the 70s, so that's how it rolls. He's everyone's #imaginary boyfriend. That's right. I'm talking Prairie Man himself, Dean Butler, our beloved co-host as well. Hi, Dean.
Wow, thank you so much. It's what a fun thing to be a guest on a podcast that you're a part of.
I know, and you don't know anything we're about to say.
I know nothing. See, normally for everyone at home, I normally do the rundowns for these shows, but today, there's other than the breaks scheduled in, I have no idea what's coming. What fun!
No. Such lack of control.
It's all Dean. It's all Dean this week because his book is coming out. So we had the all Allison thing, and that's all Dean. And then he's coming on my show, the Allison Arngrim Show, 5:00 Tuesday.
Yes,
which will probably wind up rerunning the next. It's just gonna be Dean.
Well, you'll have to rerun it all week because this comes out Thursday, and so Dean will have been on 2 daay before. So you better rerun it.
He'll have been on, and then I'll run it again. I'm going to run it a lot because it's all Dean. The book comes out. I'm going to assign it. It's huge. So there you go.
Well, thank you, Allison, for that. And Pamela, thank you both for being so responsive to take this on. And, I could write maybe multiple books, but right now I'm thinking, you only write one book. It better, you better get the word out about it. So thank you for being supportive of that.
Of course. And I'm just so excited. I was saying before we came on that I finally got the book to read. Finally got it. Hooray, huzzah. And it is so good, you guys. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. It's so engaging from the second it starts, from word one. It's so engaging. And Allison and Melissa wrote forwards, and those are incredibly engaging as well and so well written. And it's just really, it's exciting stuff. So are you ready, Dean? Shall we delve?
Yeah, no, let's jump in. I'm going to face the music. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, it is the blessed month of June. That is book release month, June 25th, as Allison said before. Are you nervous, Dean? Are you excited? A combo of both?
Yeah.
Right? Hello.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You think you go through this whole process of sitting down to write something, and it's just coming out. It comes out, stream of consciousness, you're writing it. Then you have to commit to what you've written. And then you have a year to think about what you've committed to.
Which can be dangerous. So,
Yeah. So it's in the time since writing it to the time that it's coming out, you're thinking about, my thinking about a number of things has changed, but you have to, I'm in. It is what it is. And, overall, I feel good about it. I think it's always nuance. There are things that maybe you'd like to have said, or I would like to have said differently had I had the year to think about it that I've had now. But, that is what it is. And I expect that I will be answering questions about this book for a long time from people who read it, those who love our program and 80s television and, that all of that. I think that there will be a shifting of greater understanding that comes along with that will be happening over a long time. Allison, I don't know how if you've altered your take on things that you've written.
A little. And I was going to say, I mean, if your book is successful, which I have been saying, yes, it is going to be because
it is hands down.
You're Dean Butler and then it's well written. I mean, if it was terrible, you would still sell a certain large number of copies, but it's actually good. So
it's really good.
Mine came out in 2010 and then kind of blew up really when the paperback came out in 2011. Okay. I went on The View, which made no sense. Nobody does The View for paperback, as my publicist and my agent and the publicist for HarperCollins screamed at me, but I did. It blew up. That was a long time ago. I'm still answering questions about the book now, just as we're still answering questions about the show 50 years later. If your book hits at all, you're going to be talking about it until you really go, really? Still?
But I mean, what I'm curious about is has the nuance of your answering changed on certain things? I mean, obviously stories develop and you tweak the story, but has there been wholesale change of your answers to questions?
I would say a wholesale, no. Okay. When I look at, I've done that, I've kind of gone through the book and go, okay, is that the same story? Oh, I probably would have said more about that there.
Sure.
And I might have phrased that differently because really it was more like, blah, blah, blah. But I go through and I go, yeah, no, that happened. Yeah, and that happened. Oh, yeah, I did say that and I meant that. I would say good 80%. I can stand by my book as written. There are some things where I go, okay, well that we'd probably shift that around, change that somewhat. But I haven't gone through at any point and like, oh no, why did
you haven't disavowed your knowledge of the book. You haven't said, no, I didn't write that. That was some ghost who wrote that. I have nothing to do with that. You haven't done that.
That was a typo. Yeah. My editor accidentally put that whole chapter
well, that's good.
in. No, that has not happened.
I don't expect that I will be. Look, I think there's probably 5%, maybe less, that I would say, I wish, the nuance could have been a little different on some of this, but overall, I'm going to say I feel fine about it. I feel
so.
Good
there's
about
no
it.
impending doom of like June 25th, and then you go, "Oh Lord, why did I say that story about that?"
Well, I know, but there is a little of that.
Yeah,
there is a little of that.
Sure.
I mean, I definitely have some of that.
You don't do any like explicit sexy pants stuff.
No,
you don't. There's
no.
After she and I went into the bedroom. No, that does not happen. That does not happen anywhere in the book. It doesn't happen in my book. No, dude.
No, I didn't do that.
That's always a problem. Years later,
that's my upbringing. My upbringing would prevent that kind of declarative writing. No, I would not ever have done that. It's not that I didn't do that, but I'm not doing that on paper.
No. And when I was writing mine, I had writer friends, as well as my friends go, please, for the love of God, please don't. I'm like, wasn't going there. And they're like, okay, good to know. Yeah, please. But I also literally had like a writer published serious writer friend go, please tell me you're not doing the thing in Hollywood memoirs that the actress were going to tell us so you slept. I'm like, yes, so not. And they were like, okay, good. Because I was going to say, please don't do it. No, don't do it. You'll regret it. You won't be happy.
That was one of the criticisms.
Still did it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Isn't that funny? Because Charlotte can get away with that.
No, I mean, it made Charlotte
absolutely
even
can.
Cooler.
Yeah.
I said, if I slept with Jim Morrison,
yeah. The whole book would just be about that.
Yeah,
one thing.
And Charlotte, I mean, Allison, you were there when Charlotte was young. I mean, you didn't look at Charlotte, and I wasn't there when Charlotte was there, but obviously Charlotte was around. Charlotte was a very sexy woman in this very earthy, wonderful way.
Yes.
And that's why she can get away with that. You know, it
but
doesn't feel like
Miss
tell-all.
Perfect Mary Poppins, perfect thing. And that's where we saw her as absolutely the perfect teacher, innocent as the day is long. And then we found out she was in David Lynch's Eraserhead. And we're like, whoa, dude. And we just love that. But she was always cool. She was always like the cool
Always
mom.
Cool. She's cool to this day. She's
cool. The best. She's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. But it's interesting that she claimed it, man. Like she owned it. Yeah. It was part, and honestly, it wasn't as salacious as it was a part of her story. And she had a crazy story, man. She had a crazy story.
She did not do anything graphic. She did not get to, she didn't say, well, when Jim Morris and I slept together, this is what we did, which would have been a whole other book. And I might have bought that, but there would be a whole other book. But she just said, hey, Jim Morrison. And well, yes, we were friends with benefit. That's how things are. She just said, this is what happened. But no, she didn't a moon went behind a cloud. She did not go graphic on us.
Good for her.
You don't want to do.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. And so I'm not doing really anything like that. I acknowledge people who were important to me. I acknowledge later in the book, one big train wreck in my life. I mean, a really big train wreck. And I acknowledge some challenging times. So, I've had in many ways, a very blessed life, gifted life with so many good things that have happened. But like everybody, there are bumps in the road. Everybody has bumps in the road. And so I couldn't write this without talking about some of the bumps in the road. So there definitely are that.
So good.
This is so exciting. Okay, so the book, I am going to talk a little bit about the book because honestly, it's just so good. I can't not. I just want to talk from the beginning. Yeah. You talk about your family history and these crazy connections that you have to the pioneer days, to the Wilder family, to the Ingalls family. Can you explain what that connection is? And it just makes me feel like, that there is something called destiny and that there are no such things as coincidence. And that this story makes me go, this was all according to plan.
Yeah, I think, I think most all families, we all have this history, but I had a great grandfather who wrote it down. Yeah. And, nice. And wrote it down in very eloquent. It's I don't want to call it, it's not flowery language. It's dense language.
Well, it's like ye olden days.
Yeah.
It's what you would do if you're writing a play about someone in that time. Yeah, and so that's how they wrote.
Yeah. So I was delving into this section of this at the very beginning of the book. And as I say in the book, I turned to my right and looked over at the shelf, and there is Genealogy and Recollections by my great-great-grandfather sitting on the shelf, one of 15 copies of this self-published book that still exist. And I went over and opened it up, and there's the opening section where he talks about why he wrote the book that I just think is beautiful. And he talks about, I love the way he described, we come from sturdy stock is the way he wrote it. And then he talks about the very urgent human need to be remembered. No one wants to disappear into the vapors and go away. So, and in between those two things, he talks about the crossing of the plains and the Revolutionary War and the fights with the settling of the country and the fights with Indians. And and I make it very clear in the book that I'm quoting him when he writes about the fighting of beasts and Indians and all of that. And this was a reality of that life. And I think, as a society, we push all of that. We don't want to really address that anymore. We don't want to talk about the tough. We want to make it all fine. I think we miss an opportunity for a teaching moment.
Absolutely.
where we learn, if we're willing to talk about where we've been, we have a much better context for where we are and where we're going. To the extent
history is unpleasant. History
it can be.
is
Yes,
bloody and
it can
scary and terrible things happen. And history there's so much bloodshed and war and killing. That is history. And history is not a fun story. It's history. And you hope by reading it that we're all gonna do better. But generally, when you read real history, you go, oh, okay, that sounds terrible. Well, yes, it was. That's what history is.
Yeah, and
sadly.
It's also important to know the mindset of these people who were saying these horrible things about Native Americans, and why would they, and what was going on, and the misunderstanding, and it's important to know the roots of where that actually came from. Because
the roots
if we
of it are
learn that,
survival.
we can grow. Exactly.
The roots are survival. And of course those who settled in the eastern part of the country and developed this concept of manifest destiny, and we're going to claim all of this. There is some dirt on people's hands for all that.
Yeah.
That was
It was full-scale war. It was a war was declared basically against the new people and the people who lived there. There was a full-on war. It did not go well.
Right.
You mentioned about the urgent human need to be remembered, and you mentioned in the book, you talk about the whole weirdness that if not for Laura Ingalls Wilder writing all those books and there being a TV show and it all blowing up with the books all over the world, Laura Ingalls and her family and all these relatives we talk about, and Eliza, Jane, and Almanzo's whole family and all of their grandparents, nobody would be talking about these people. They would have remembered for a while because they had a lot of kids, but like Lauren Almanzo had the one daughter who didn't have children. That would have kind of been it. Generally, most people, other than a tiny group of people in like Missouri whose grandparents were friends with Lauren Almanzo at the farm, would not be sitting around talking about them. They would be forgotten. They would be dusty footnotes. I think none of them. But she did write these books, and it did explode. And then there was a TV show, and now you are insanely famous. And as we talked about, Michael being the only one who said 50 years, hey, yeah, after we're all gone, they'll watch us. You've no doubt had ancestors you've looked up who are semi-famous or accomplished something big. I had my cousin ask me this. I was doing the whole genealogy at the whole ancestry.com, and I found like an obscure poet in the 1500s in England. Semi-known, but like, okay, the only sort of kind of known guy. And my cousin said, how does it feel to be the most famous person in your entire family in 500 years?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
television is an awesomely powerful medium.
Right.
Yeah. It's
so all of your ancestors, Alfonso and the gang, writing all this stuff.
Yes.
And hoping they'd be
Alfonso.
remembered.
Yeah.
And now we have you, who is going to be remembered, has already been remembered way longer than you thought you would be famous, and you're going to be remembered for many, many more decades.
Yeah.
And for the same roots that your family came from. I mean, it's really, the connection is pretty surreal.
When growing up, and I talk about this in the book, and I think it's one of the things that is in a casting situation you walk in the door with, and you just don't know what you're walking in the door with. But I grew up as a fifth-generation Californian on a family ranch that had been founded in 1885 by my great-grandfather. It's still there, still part of the family. When I was growing up, there was no running hot water. There was no electricity. We read by coal oil lamp at night. We played Parcheesi and Monopoly and dominoes at night together. We talked. We did dishes. We cooked together. We did chores together. It was a large we rode horses every day. This was it was a large multi-generational family together in this and in the book, which of course you did not see because you got a reader's copy of the book, but there are pictures of my family in this place in the late 1800s, you are looking at Little House. You are looking, the pictures are the long dresses, the whole thing. It's a place that I go to and look at today. And there they are, dressed that way. It is surreal. And I think that as actors, we carry our lives into the rooms that we go and audition into, and we don't even know what we're carrying in the door. It just comes in with us, and somehow people detect things. I don't think I thought of it at the time, but in retrospect, I'm thinking I was absolutely born to be this guy or someone like this.
It's insanely true.
Yeah.
And for multiple reasons, not just because you embodied it, whether it's spiritually, past lives, generational, whatever, but you being you and the way that you had to be with a 15-year-old girl, your sensitivity, the way that you were raised, being kind and courteous. That all played into it. I mean, my God, any other actor, I can't imagine any other actor but being put into that position.
I'm sure that there are those actors that would have found, because I wasn't raised in a complete vacuum. There are other people who have been raised like I was, but I was the guy who walked into that room. And I think I say throughout the book, casting directors don't make mistakes. Casting directors are trained to have an eye for not only what they like, but their estimate of what other people will like. And that decision is made about people in about 8 seconds. We make huge decisions about people very, very quickly. And so regardless of where it comes from, we do have an essence. All of us have an essence that we walk in with, and we can't hide from it. People who think they can hide from that are kidding themselves. And they shouldn't try and hide from it because it's the most authentic version of you that you've got. And I think that stuff is really important. And I think one of the things that really helped me was certainly when sitting down with Michael all those years ago, was the call that I got the day before from Susan Sukman's office through my agent, who said, whatever you do when you come in to read for Michael, don't act. That was the note. And it terrified me because I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, what am I doing if I'm not doing that? And of course, I went in as simply as I could imagine myself being, and it worked very nicely. But when you looked at our show and the naturalistic way it was performed, not everybody, because Allison worked bigger, Catherine worked bigger, but the people who were not the antagonists in the show, the people who were who were the real people in the show, not the, and I don't mean that in any way to say not the real, but Allison, you were the fly in the ointment. You were always the fly in the ointment. You're the trouble.
The naturalistic thing. I said, you've heard my audition story. When I got there and I saw those pages and said, this is not normal. They're all these.
And your dad said, don't touch it.
Don't touch it. Don't look at the page. Don't rehearse it. Don't rehearse it. Put the pages down. Don't even look at them. Just open your mouth. And I went, what?
It's because just you.
Because it's me. Because normally it was like, oh, yes, we'll read this several times. It was just, no. That thing that jumped off the page at you where you went, oh, she's this. Yes, she's that. Do that. Just that thing you thought of. Do that. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And
the crazy thing about it is that as easy as it sounds, it is not easy to do at all.
Well, you have to trust a lot to do that. You have to trust yourself to do that.
Yeah. To just say the words.
I marvel at, to this day, I marvel at young actors. And I think you see this, when someone's been doing it for a long time, they have a chance to find out what it is that they do. They sort of are figuring out who they are. When you see kids who are able to just occur, to exist in front of the camera in this very pure way. I look at Matt Laberto and how he occurred on camera. Matt was so simple in what he was doing. I watched that. I watched him working. I watched Melissa working, looking at reruns of her as a young girl, at Allison, at Patrick Labrateau. I mean, just incredible simplicity, honesty. The camera just sucks it in, and it was amazing to watch that, and
full of emotional life, without
emotional
pushing the gas pedal. Yeah,
no push at all. It's just like it's real.
Yeah,
it was rock and roll. It was rock and roll acting. Less is more. When in doubt, fall
Do
out.
less.
It was less is more.
I remember, boy, I mean, I'm going to jump around a little bit. That just triggers a story that I had when I was working on Broadway and Into the Woods. There was, I know, Pamela, you may be familiar with the wonderful actress Barbara Bryn.
She might be.
Did you ever know? Did you ever hear Barbara Bryn? Know Barbara Bryn? Barbara Bryn was Jack's mother.
I knew of her. I never worked with her, but yes.
older actress, and she had a fascinating. She was wonderful, and she had this. Every now and then on a Wednesday matinee, you'd have kids. They bring in busloads of kids, and the kids, you could hear the murmuring in the audience. I mean, they're out of school. They're acting out, and my instinct was to push into that to get their attention. Barbara's instinct, and she was very clear about it, she said, no, when they're talking, I get quieter. And so suddenly when she gets quieter, they're wondering, why isn't there this noise coming off the stage? And suddenly they stop talking and they start listening. Yeah. And I'm sure if you're working on the stage a lot, and Allison, look, you're on the stage constantly. You can read the temperature of a room. And anybody who works in front of an audience, you start to read the temperature of a room. And when you really trust yourself, it's a very, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's a very organic back and forth relationship that exists between a performer and an audience, which is different than the performer and the camera.
Yeah.
It just
because every audience is different. Every audience is different with a particular different energy.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating to know like how much to give, how that naturalistic thing, watching Matthew and Melissa work together, and Melissa Sue Anderson, and the simplicity of those family interactions that they had, and just beautiful, simple, honest connectedness. It's magical when you see it, and you just can't. It's so human, you can't miss it.
Well, and that's why it still translates.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. How is it that? Perhaps why? Because, I was talking about the 50th anniversary. I saw a magazine the other day that had 5 other shows that are having their 50th this year. And I'm like, oops, wow. Not having that. Wait, what? And there are shows, I would say, where there were huge hits when we were on and got Emmys, but they're not dressing up as them for Halloween.
Right. There's no Mork and Mindy. Yes.
There's no 18,000 people.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Yeah.
Is it that's why we connected more? Why it's big in foreign countries where it's dubbed? Is that why 50 years later? Because it was so simple and so clean, just so simple that it wasn't complicated. And some of the other shows were brilliant, but they were doing really complicated performances and complicated stuff when we weren't. Yeah. Is that why it's a hit 50 years later?
I think it's a big part of it.
And as the fan in this, in this convo, yes, that's exactly.
But you're very knowledgeable, Pamela. You're very knowledgeable.
Well, as an actor too, because I'm not just seeing it from a normal fan perspective. I'm also seeing it as an actor and watching what they're doing and getting a master class in acting every episode.
That's very generous, but I think there are some really good things that went on. By the way, do we need to take a break? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be wearing my producer hat, but do we need to take a break?
Why don't we take a break? I have so many more questions for you. So yes, okay, let's take a break and we will get back with my #imaginary boyfriend, all of our #imaginary boyfriend, Dean Butler.
Hey, when you visit Simi Valley, California, you are stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents. Explore beautiful wildflowers. Hike through iconic Hollywood locations and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Less than 15 minutes away from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios, Simi Valley has small town charm with big time history. Go to visitsimiValley.com for more information.
We also want to thank Alexander GMC of Simi Valley, Golden State Water Company, Marketingscape, Strathern Historical Society, WM, formerly Waste Management, and Vista at Simi. And also, by the way, Little House 50th anniversary bus tours. Yep, they're continuing at Big Sky Movie Ranch on June 15th. Go to simivalleychamber.org and select a Little House 50th anniversary and then bus tickets to get yours. And we're back. Okay. Dean, I'm going to go back to your book.
I have to say something to Pamela, because you were talking about acting. You should get master.
Oh, yes.
You called me to ask me for acting tips because you were doing FBI. And yes. I told you to get a good night's sleep and pack light snacks.
No, you just told me to snack.
I told you to pack light snacks.
I called both of you.
My advice.
Dean's advice was...
did I offer you advice? I can't imagine.
All you said was just...
maybe I did.
Yourself.
Just
you
be
said
yourself.
Just be yourself.
Right. Be yourself. Have fun. Yeah.
And I was like,
I said, bring the snacks.
And you said, bring snacks.
Keep the blood sugar up because it never fails. It never fails. They will call you in early in the morning until you have this huge scene and then go, could you wait? Could you wait? Could you wait? Rehearse it. Could you wait? Could you wait? And then around the end of the day, when your blood sugar is crashing and you're so done and just want to go home and take a nap,
she was right. She was right. No, it was so funny because I was like, I'm going to call my Little House people. Like, how amazing is this that I can just call them and ask them for acting advice? And neither one of you had actual acting advice. Which,
I wonder what that says.
You just trust me. You just trust me as an actor. That's all that.
Well, I think we've watched you work, Pamela. You know what you're doing.
I know, I do.
We've watched you.
Close to acting and I've seen you on stage. I know you can.
Yeah, you can do
act,
this.
So I'm not concerned.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. All right, I'm taking it back to Dean.
Okay.
Dean. Okay. Also, let's go back to your book. In your book, you are talking a lot, and it's breaking my heart, about being bullied a lot as a child. I was bullied a lot too as a child. You were too, Allison.
Were you really?
Oh yeah.
Too?
Oh yeah.
I wonder if were we really bullied, or did it just feel that way because everyone feels like they're a target when they're a kid because we're just so vulnerable.
Did your head get stuck in the toilet or not?
No, mine did not. No, my head did not get stuck in the toilet.
Mine was emotional. Mine was emotional. Yeah, mine was emotional abuse. It was definitely bullying. It was bad. It was not good. It was not good.
Really?
But anyway, but I also think, the kids that have they're different than the norm are the ones that get targeted. So,
well, for me, it was my red face.
Your red face. I know when you talk about your red face.
It was
that we all love so much.
It was the blushing. And at the time, now it's like I look at it and say, that's my greatest asset now.
It is.
It's like it's a great thing now. At the time, when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, 10, 12, 15 years old, not great. And people, you have a target on you when you have that kind of a affectation that is completely out of your control.
I don't know. Unless you like shy guys.
I had no basis.
I like
to
shy
that.
guys, so I probably would have loved it. So there you
and
go.
with bullies, any
Where
kind
were
of
you? Where were you when I was,
And then the blushing would be seen as not macho, as like unmanly, and that's what bullies are obsessed with.
Right.
Ironically, unmanly. Yes, that's very ironic.
I know.
But okay, and I'm gonna quote from the book. I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
So you were bullied a lot, but finding the arts you talk about was. Which at first was being part of your school choir and then being the announcer for your school sports games. It was a particular sport, basketball games.
Yeah.
So you said that they really changed things for you. And I'm going to say 2 quotes that really, really spoke to me. You said, singing in that children's choir was my entry point into a lifetime of creative expression. And it happened because I raised my hand. That's how simple it can be to step into your life. Mm-hmm. Singing was about being heard and being accepted for what I had to say. And then the next quote about you being the announcer at the basketball games is, everything that has happened since can be traced back to that moment when Mr. Cochran pointed me to the microphone. So I really want to hear from you about that idea of being seen and heard and how these moments transformed you.
As a kid, because of the blushing and my penchant for getting upset when I was teased, which only made it worse. Of course, it's like pouring gasoline on yourself and lighting it up. It felt like, and I think maybe my peers, and it's interesting, I'm going to my 50th high school reunion this summer with a group of people that I started kindergarten with and graduated. So, there's,
that's lovely.
If there are people who were there, if they have any recollection of this, and they probably won't, because it's not a big deal to them. It's your life. Right? When you feel like you're being like annihilated by people, you don't let go of that. But for other people, it's just like it's just like stuff that happens. But I felt like I couldn't open my mouth over anything, and I have my grandfather. I love this. Years when I was like 7. My grandfather very laughingly, and I've lived with this with my family, called me a fount of misinformation. And because I would just like hear something, and I was very verbal, but not necessarily really cogently verbal or understanding exactly what I was talking about. So I would just say ridiculous things without knowing they were ridiculous things. And my grandfather got a real kick out of that and called me the fount of misinformation, which in retrospect, I totally get that. I totally get that. I like to think that I'm not a fount of misinformation anymore, but I still do like to express myself verbally. So you take a chance, you take a chance. But when I spoke into the microphone at the high school basketball game, it literally was, and I was 15 probably. It was the first time in my life that I felt like I was in control of the reaction that I was getting. Before I would get reacted to, but it was derision, not something that I was actively, and I wasn't trying to be a funny person. Allison was born, you were born, it seems, to be funny. I mean, you have that muscle, I was trying to be taken, I wanted to be taken very seriously. And I did not want to be mocked and did not. So in speaking into the microphone at basketball games, that moment was this transformative thing where people who had mocked me for years, at least that's what it felt like to me, they may dispute that characterization.
Do you think they would dispute that characterization?
I think they
think
might.
This was you?
I think, I think it's, look, I think in so many...
Bullies don't remember. Bullies are like, what? Did I do that?
Yeah, no, right, exactly. Yeah. I think in so many cases...
my high school reunion, they were like, really? No, I always liked you. Really?
Yeah, right. No, exactly. And it doesn't feel that way. And I think so many times in our lives, without realizing it, we are our own worst enemies.
Sure.
Because we say and do things that just like pour gasoline, shine a light on us of, it's like the kick me sign on the back of you, so that someone puts on the back of your jacket, and you're walking down the hall and people are kicking you and you don't know why they're kicking, but you've done
you're a
something.
Kid and you haven't developed that part of your brain.
Right.
And you're,
Exactly. So this was the first time so this was the first time I felt like I was taken seriously or accepted for something I was saying. And that was enormously powerful, and it changed it's interesting. In that time of doing that, because there was some level of acceptance around something I was doing, suddenly I didn't have the urgent need to like dominate or be in control of the moment or whatever. And suddenly you have access to the humor of it all, of the things that, okay, people are laughing at you because my mother always said to me, if you can just laugh at these people who are teasing you about your red face, it'll stop.
Yeah. So hard to do that.
It is so hard when you're a kid. But in those moments, in that transformative thing, I would say this to any kid, if you can find that thing that you love, that gives you purpose, it's going to give you freedom in so many other areas of your life too, because you've got something, you found something that gives you value. And I say this through the book, I needed to be seen and heard. That was really important. And so once I was heard, then I decided, if I can be heard and be liked, well, maybe I can be seen too, and not just this voice from the speakers, but I can get up on a stage. And I followed a girl I had a crush on into
That's always how it is for the boys.
Yeah.
That's every story.
Yeah. I followed a girl I had a crush on into the theater for a production of Once Upon a Mattress at Piedmont High School. The girl I had a crush on was playing Winifred the Woebegone and just had this big, powerful voice and little diminutive thing. She was like 4'10", but had this voice that was just unbelievable. And I was just totally enamored with that. Her access to her power was incredible. And I was totally attracted to that. And being on that stage in this simple little production of a high school musical. But it was funny. There were people who, what I got was, or the power of it was, there were people who came up to me after that. I was just in the chorus, but I had some bits, that I was doing. But people came up to me and said, you were really good up there. I mean, and that's huge when you are that age. When someone affirms something about you. I was never going to be the great sports person. I was not particularly noteworthy academically. It wasn't any. I was the best behaved boy in school. I was always that, which is not currency. Right. That's not the currency you want. But I was that because that's how I was raised. When I got that from being on the stage, it was just an incredible gift. And that started the whole track.
And this is why the arts are so important, especially in our schools.
Totally.
Because if you don't have, I wouldn't even say for some kids, I will say for all kids.
Yes,
if you don't have that kind of outlet to express yourself, to be seen, to be heard, to get out what's inside of you. And no one needs to know what those things are, but the access to getting it outside of your body is life-saving. I mean, my God, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that in school. And it doesn't mean you have to be an artist when you grow up. It means that it's a way to access.
But you learn something about yourself. You learn something. And yes, you learn you have value in some vehicle to express yourself.
Yeah. And you learn discipline.
And something that was cool, because having your mommy tell you you're the best behaved boy in school probably not going to make you overly popular. Cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, that again was sort of like a big kick me sign on my back. I mean, guys just look for that stuff. You become, when you are the best behaved kid in school, you are going to be like mocked a little bit because it's just not cool. And I've never been cool. It's just not, I've never seen myself that way. I don't occur that way to myself, if it happens from a distance, but I'm not cool. I've never been cool.
Never been cool.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Allison.
Are all actors nerds? Are all of us who become successful in show business desperate, terrible nerds and dorks in high school? Is this a thing?
I think that's a real deal. I do. I think that's a real deal.
Yeah, was that so? That's your something.
Pamela, I mean, terrible nerd in high school?
I was not a terrible nerd in high school, but I will say, I think part of the reason why I always felt high school was finally sort of like freedom for me. I had a really rough go of it in elementary and middle school, but always knew that I had I knew I was talented. I knew I had this thing. But it, so on one hand, it was having confidence in knowing that you have this sort of talent. And on the other hand, crippling insecurity and just wanting to be like the other kids.
Yes, just
and not understanding why you don't like the boy bands why do all they all love boy bands? I hate the boy bands. They all like this. I hate this. They all like this movie. I hate that movie. You know, it just was like, I couldn't understand. And I was so desperate to be like everyone else. And just like what you said, Dean, is that it's the thing that makes you not like everything else that turns into your superpower. It truly is. And so by the time I got to high school and I found a tribe of people that liked me just for who I was, which was really the first time that had ever happened. Yeah. And like you said, it's sort of from there you can grow. So high school for me was freedom. But I mean, I was definitely a theater nerd. I mean, you would categorize like the theater people, but I don't think I was annoying with it. I don't know. I guess we should ask some people I went to high school.
Yeah, right. No, they would know. They would know. Yeah, no.
We're going to go for a break. We're going to go for another break. And hey, what about that Simi Valley?
When you visit Simi Valley, California, you're stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents, explore beautiful wildflowers, hike through iconic Hollywood locations, and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios, Simi Valley has small-town charm with big-time history. Go to visitsimivalley.com for more information. We also want to thank Cozy TV, Rodex, Modern Prairie, okay, Melissa G, Price Ford, City of Simi Valley, Adventist Health, Simi Valley. Thank you all for your support of this podcast. We truly appreciate it.
Dean, so, we're coming down the home stretch of this thing, and here we are yammering about your book. You are actually doing a big old celebrity book signing in Los Angeles. Tell us where the book signing is, when the book signing is, so everybody can go and get the book and have you sign it in person.
So I've got
all over you.
So, and that's lovely. And, I actually have 3 book signings in Southern California in the first 3 days that the book is out. So the first one will be at the Open Book in Simi Valley on the release day on June 25th. On June 27th, I will be at the Grove at Barnes & Noble at the Grove in the evening. And we have a card for that, which we can put up. And people can make reservations to that. And I'm so grateful. Allison is going to come and lead the mirth. Lead the conversation there as for a little before we do the book signing, and looking forward to seeing people come to Barnes & Noble. It's a great place for a book signing. That's
going to be a major event. That's going to be so cool.
I hope people come.
Do we have time for just a couple of quick questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
So, a few questions from you listeners. James A. Moore III, very regal sounding name. Dear Pamela, Allison, and Dean, I have read and heard that Dean Butler did not like the new hat he was given to wear in season 9 because he felt that this was a hat that Charles Ingalls would have worn, and he did not want to be a Charles type character replacement. Is this correct?
I'd say no, that's not correct. I didn't necessarily agree with the decision to change the character's hat because Michael had made such a big deal out of characters have hats that speak of them that I was, but in the beginning of season 9, when I showed up to work in the dressing room was Michael's double hat. And he was gone, and that hat was there for me to wear. It was a little snug.
Is that why you had the hat hair always?
Yeah, I always had hair. Yeah. And so, but it was a little snug, and I put it on, but I was very flattered to wear the hat, and it's a hat that I still have. I just wondered, what did it say? It's too much. It's overthinking it. I loved the hat that I wore initially, and I loved the logic that Michael had for giving me that particular hat. I also loved the fact that Michael, presumably, because Michael made all these decisions, he never spoke to me about it, but he had to make these decisions. That hat would not have been in my dressing room had he not wanted it there. That's the hat that I had and wore it with pride, and still very grateful to have it. It's one of the great memories I have from the show. So it wasn't like, it was just grateful, sort of surprised, but really grateful.
He loves the hat. He loves the hat now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, James A. Moore III.
Thanks, James A. Moore.
But thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Okay, this is sorry, folks. I have a question because I read this online and I was like, I don't know if this is true. This is an excerpt from an article written on mentalfloss.com. Ready? It says, in an attempt to try to joke Melissa Gilbert out of her nervousness, they're talking about the first kiss. Butler quietly crooned some lyrics from Strangers in the Night into her ear before the cameras rolled. Unfortunately, his effort had a cringeworthy opposite effect on Gilbert, and she pleaded with Michael Landon afterward for any romantic scenes between Laura and Almanzo to be limited to hugs or a peck on the cheek. True, false, crazy?
Well, I think that is an inaccurate. That's inaccurate of that moment. The Strangers in the Night did happen, but it was after. but it was after the characters were married already, and it was in our first bed scene.
Fred,
that's hilarious.
Yeah,
Not
and Melissa was being. Look, Melissa could be. Anybody who's been Melissa can be very certain. She is in control. She had vastly more experience in her acting life than I did, and she never let me forget that. And there was a day when it was particularly particularly edgy and chippy, and so I knew I had more experience under the sheets than she did.
Boom.
At that point. And so I did croon the straight, and it did have the desired effect. She did flip out a little bit. And it was actually one of the few times I ever had seen her out of sorts, and I got a lot of pleasure from that.
Wow.
So but it was not during the first kiss. It was not the first kiss. It was later.
See, that's it. Okay, if the first kiss where she's already nervous and her mother is there, and
all that
would have been terrible.
Yeah.
But you were already kissed. It's a thing. You were married. The bed's in your married couple. It's ha ha ha. That should be.
Well,
funny.
I don't think it was ha 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 for
to be okay
Melissa
with that by then. But she was still, even married, not comfortable with you.
No, she was not. Yeah, okay, the most effective bedroom scene we ever had was eating a bowl of popcorn. And it was actually sort of a nice little scene, but there was one scene in Days of Sunshine, Days of Shadow where Almanzo's sort of losing it and wants her to go away because he feels so defeated. And it was really sort of a lovely scene where, like a wife would do who wanted to make a connection with her husband, she came to his bed and got in the bed with him or started to get in the bed, and he asks her not to because he can't do it. But I thought that was a lovely, and she did it very well. She may have hated doing it, but she did do it very well. So yes, the Strangers in the Night did happen, and we had a couple of those moments. I always remember another scene. I'm sorry, we're going on way too long here.
No.
But I remember another moment that we had where we had a disagreement about the intention of a scene. It wasn't playing with the dialogue; it was the intention of the dialogue. And I was reading it one way, and she didn't like the way I was reading it, and she went to the director and said, "He can't read it like that." he can't do that because whatever. He can't. And I said, I'm doing the dialogue. I'm doing it like this. Well, Michael came up to me and said, you can't do it that way. And if there's ever a question between the two of you about how it's going to be done, it's always going to be her way. So just deal with that.
Oh my gosh.
So, and that really, that was like, okay. And that, so you could.
That worked in a way because was not Laura in the 1800s very much the boss of the house? She called Almanzo the man of the house in Manly, but even her writings in Like in the Ozarks, it's like she is making decisions, and Manly was very quiet, like, here, honey, what can I do to support this?
So she would crack the whip and make him crack the whip and I'll do the dance. I mean, it's like that's what came out in that moment. Now, look, that didn't happen. That was the only time but I never forgot that.
Yeah, of course.
No.
That it was very clear that if it was a question, it was going to be her way. And it was never going to be, we were not going to sort of joust as actors with the dialogue, because I think a lot of actors do work. You can work that way where you can play with intention, and then it's like ping pong. You got to respond to that. She didn't want to respond to that. She wanted it different.
Do you remember which scene it was?
No,
so interesting.
I know, I don't.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what the scene.
Part of that whole thing. Yeah, of course.
It was something that the intention would have made her the bad guy.
Yeah.
Instead of me, instead of me being the bad guy.
Yes, got it.
Yeah, and I just changed the intention. So I was fighting back against the writing a little bit without changing the words, but changing the meaning.
Oh, yeah, there's no way you were going to make her the bad guy.
No, that was not going to happen. I get it. But instead of dancing with me to figure it out, she just, she went to the boss and said, he can't do that. And that's what happened. So it's like, okay.
Is popcorn a soothing thing? Because I noticed she said the one good bedroom is the popcorn, and all of Michael and Charles and Caroline's best bedroom scenes
were popcorn.
Where they're the most chill is that bowl of popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think there were, popcorn. Well, because it's about something other than being in bed. You're eating popcorn.
I could say a couple more things about that, but I won't. I'll keep it clean. Okay.
I think we need to get out of this.
Yes, we will wrap this up, but we are going to be back. We are going to be back with part 2 with Dean Butler. Please join us on our socials. Join us on our website, littlehouse50podcast.com, littlehouse50podcast. What else? Anything? Oh, in our show notes, we'll have all the links that you need to get what you want. And please join us next week. And Dean, thank you so much for doing this. This is such
Pamela,
a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And Allison, thank you so much.
We'll see you guys next week. Bob, go get the wig. Let's fly. Come on, Allison. Fly with us, baby.
I'm flying. I have so much room. I'm flying there.